The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of How You Play the Game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of How You Play the Game, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. Yours truly, Jack, for along with you as we talk about what's going on as far as the world of sportsmanship is concerned. This is the second episode of the month of December, I guess the last episode of 2025, if you can believe it. Glad you could be with us, though. As always, check us out online at osipfoundation.org. If you'd like to contact the show, please use the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org. And on the socials, we're at facebook.com/OSIPFoundation, X and Instagram at OSIPFoundation, hashtag How You Play the Game. I wanted to talk briefly today about some stuff that I saw in college sports. So the first thing that I saw came out early in the month when there was a game between James Madison and Troy. These are two colleges, obviously. They were playing a football game. It was the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. And what happened was apparently fans started throwing snowballs onto the field. And it looked like it was going to start to affect the game. And we got to a point where the athletic director had to come on the PA system and warn fans to stop, or else penalty flags will start to be thrown. It then got to a point where looks like, or at least it started when in pre-games, I should say, when we had members of the marching band get pelted by snowballs, and then is continued into the first half. It was pretty sad, to be honest with you. It took me back to my days when I directed the pep band at Lafayette College, my alma mater. And we used to have situations like this. I don't know if it ever got to this point, but you are dealing with rowdy fans, specifically college-age kids who probably can be intoxicated. You're dealing with passionate fans who have a loyalty to a school, and you're dealing with rivalries such as Lafayette-Lehigh, where the game, to a degree, takes a back seat. And I've always wondered that, I get it. Listen, as a Yankees fan, I get it because of the Red Sox. I get it because of the Mets. I get it because of the Rays. I get all of that, okay? I just never really understood it in terms of what would drive people to do this kind of stuff. Now, you can start to make suggestions and whatnot, and the one thing that I always seem to reference is that when we were all teenagers, then we had impulses that came from a prefrontal cortex that was not fully developed. So you're making decisions without thinking through the consequences and whatnot. I mean, we've all it's all part of being an adolescent and a young adult and whatnot. So I get all of that. There's a reason that it's meant to be educational and a learning experience, but it goes beyond that too. Like, I think back to in those scenarios when you would have alumni come back, especially those who were associated with a frat, and it was like, okay, this is your opportunity to get blitzed and completely act like a kid again. You know, it was just really, really interesting. And so I guess the story goes that one of my final years there during a Lafayette Lehigh football game, it got to the point where the unsportsmanlike acts not only were on the field, but started to occur via words within the bands. I distinctly remember essentially something to the tune of the Lehigh people contacted us and said they thought that we had done something wrong, and our retort before it even got to me was, well, you guys played over the national anthem and you guys assaulted our band members. And finally I read the chains and whatnot, and I just stepped in and I said, do you guys hear yourselves right now? Like this is what's really happening amongst two colleges. We're gonna do this. This is stupid. This is absolutely stupid what we are doing right now. We are supposed to be held to higher standards and whatnot. And I said, look, I can't speak to, witnessing specific stuff. Everything that people told me was hearsay. Like, I get it, but we're the adults and we got to do better. And I didn't hear a thing after that. Let me tell you, it just speaks to the insanity that is in college sports. And as you look at what has happened with the name, image, likeness stuff, that has essentially created a very, very odd, wild, wild west when it comes to college sports right now. The other part of it is look at since we'll stay on college football, look at the absurdity of the ranking system and what is used to create the college football playoff system and the bowl subsystem. It is, if you have OCD, it drives you nuts, because this is essentially a committee that comes together and says, all right, let's put together some sort of fun playoff system. We're going to use rankings that we're going to arbitrarily create and try and make this big money grab and exploit all of our, all of these college football programs with all of these bowls that we're just creating. It's mind-boggling what this is. Recently, if you follow any of it, or if you listen to, sports talk radio or read a couple of things online, you'll see that Notre Dame was left out of the college football playoff ranking system and essentially said, you know what? We don't want to play in any bowl game then. They took their ball and went home. Now, granted, there's a backstory. There's if you are in the know, there's a lot of stuff about how they were ranked, in the top 12, and then all of a sudden the last ranking came out and they were beneath the top 12, and people are saying, how dare you do that? It was just, I'm not even going to waste my time trying to describe it. If you want to look it up, go ahead and look it up what exactly happened. But take a look at the fact that this is an arbitrary polling system that determines playoffs. To me, that speaks to the ludicrous nature even more of college sports. I mean, look at the NCAA tournament for basketball. All right? There are basically a ton of automatic bids. If you win your conference, you're in the tournament. Okay, great. I'm all for that. But then you have all these at-large bids. Hello, money grab. You're going to put teams in that don't get the the at-large or the automatic bids because you know that it'll bring eyeballs to the set. You know that you'll make money off of this. It's really like when I look at professional sports by comparison, really the only inconsistencies sometimes come when you look at the schedule and you see very minor variables in the schedule. You see very, very, why is it that this baseball team is going to play this team 6 times and this team 7 times? There's no real rhyme or reason to that. Okay. I get all that. That to me is a related discussion, but a separate discussion. At least the system is set up so that we know who is in the playoffs at the end of the season. We have division winners and we have wild card winners. It's that simple. Okay? There are no committees selecting the team. It is predetermined. We do not have that in college sports. And without the immature intangibles that we discussed at the beginning of the show, with throwing of snowballs and stuff like that, that in and of itself, without that, creates just a system that you wonder why people like me don't invest in college sports. And then you throw in the wild, wild west aspect of these kids are getting paid now and basically can hold schools and teams at ransom for more money and just keep transferring and this, that. It has become a joke. It is a joke. Okay? At least with some of the ridiculous bowls that are not in the college football playoff system, at least they have like a rubric that says, okay, the top team in this conference and the top team in this conference that both do not make the football playoffs, they get to go to this bowl and play each other. At least we have that. But even that, is that anything? Not to me, it's not. It just doesn't do anything for me. And that doesn't mean that the sport isn't good. It doesn't mean any we should get rid of it. It's more about just trying to point out some of the absurdities in college sports, especially as they relate to sportsmanship. If we're going to have the intangibles of kids throwing snowballs onto the field during a game, if we're going to have the intangibles of the University of Notre Dame saying, oh, we're not in this randomly selected, I know you say you have parameters and votes and this, that, the other, but it's not based on wins and losses like it is in professional sports. I'm sorry. They're going to take their ball and go home because they didn't get what they wanted. Do we see exactly how ludicrous this is? So I guess the challenge here is to see if people who are very invested in college sports, if they have the ability to take a step back and look at it for what it is. And to me, this is just as difficult, if not more difficult, than doing it at the professional level or at the significantly young youth level with all of the things that we face at those levels in terms of sportsmanship. Because the blind dedication to and allegiance to a school, whether you went there or not, can be very powerful. Very, very powerful. It's almost ingrained in me, or was ingrained in me to a degree where, if I would see someone wearing a Lehigh shirt, I would like, ugh. And now I'm looking at it like, yeah, okay, you guys are our biggest rivals. Okay, great. I might do the playful, good-natured ribbing, and then it stops there. It shouldn't go beyond that. I hope that everyone has an absolutely wonderful holiday season and a very, very blessed new year. I'd like to end this show with a pretty big announcement. Our 4th annual OSIP celebration will be held on Sunday, May 31st, 2026. We don't have a lot of details yet, but I do have the details of who will be honored, and it's my pleasure to announce that here. For the inaugural recipients of the Ricardo Portillo Award for Sportsmanship Excellence for officials and media members. The media member is Rush Cahall, who is a videographer for Sage Media Productions. He has dedicated his time and his talents at no cost to our organization. He's the one who has made the videos. He's the one who's done so much of the multimedia stuff for us. Never asked for a dime in return. Just an amazing dude. And so we'd like to honor him. And for officials, it's my pleasure to say, I got the confirmation just yesterday, our good friend Chris Conroy. As long as Major League Baseball doesn't tell him we can't give you off that weekend, he's going to be there, and I couldn't be happier for him. He not only has he given us his time with coming to some trivia nights and coming on the podcast each year. He has been, an umpire mentor to me. But when you also consider what he has done for Umps Care, you think about the families who are battling with sick kids, in the children's hospitals. You think about how some of those kids are not coming out of that hospital alive. And these guys, these officials, these umpires, Major League umpires, go in there with Build-A-Bear programs just to kind of take their minds off of stuff and, bring a smile to their face and just give everybody a reprieve. These are guys who have to adjudicate 100-mile-an-hour fastballs and deal with testosterone and some of the absurd ridiculousness that gets overplayed in professional sports. And then they also have the ability to go in and just try and say, we're thinking of you as you guys go through this. To these sick kids and their families. That's amazing to me. So please, stay on top of our socials as we announce when tickets will go on sale, but mark the date down now. We sure hope that you can be there. We're looking forward to it. So until we speak again in 2026, we'd like to thank everybody once again for listening. As always, check us out online at osipfoundation.org. Use the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org, facebook.com/osipfoundation, X and Instagram @osipfoundation, hashtag how you play the game. We'll talk to everybody in just a few short weeks. And until then, happy holidays, happy new year, and treat each other with respect. How You Play the Game is a production of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by Soundspring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osipfoundation.org.